morning, everyone. I'm sure by now you heard about the increase in interest rate and you're wondering what would happen to real estate market. So let's take a look at a few fundamental factors. One factor is inflation rate. So the inflation rate is basically a mismatch between the supply and demand. When manufacturers, they cannot produce based on the demand that exists in the market, there is an inflation rate. So the prices of the goods is going up. Unfortunately, also at the earlier part of this year, Canadian government was faced with the crisis of the transportation, which is the fuel and oil and energy costs. So that added more fuel to the inflation rate. So one of the policies, historical policies among the modern societies and G7 countries is the start of the increase of the interest rate, that hopefully that they can diffuse the situation and lower the cost of the goods and basically balance the market. Well, let's take a look at it. What happened with the similar decision and similar policies in 2017? In 2017, when real estate market at the early part of the 2017 had a double-digit growth every month over month, the federal government decided to increase the interest rate. In fact, they increased it 3 times by quarter point, and we reached at the 1.75% of the base overnight rate. They also at that time introduced some provincial policies and federal policies. The most notable policy was a stress test. And the reason the stress test was introduced, the federal government wanted to manage the affordability of the Canadian. Basically, every Canadian who applied for a mortgage had a base available rate plus the 2%. And the 2% was implemented in the event that in the future that the federal government had to increase the rate. What happened at that time? Did it reduce the prices drastically? Absolutely not. We had a different adjustment of the prices based on the different market, and we had also seasonally adjusted transaction. Basically, we were not even in a balanced market, we were still in a seller market, and there was still a short supply, but there was also a huge demand. Basically, what happened in 2017, Canadian, they had to readjust their requirement and assess their situation before entering back to the market. And we noticed second half of 2018, just a year prior to the pandemic, consumers coming back to the market, and the market was robust and was going upward situation again. So now let's take a look at the situation at the moment. One of the issues that we have still at the moment is the supply. If we take a look at across Ontario in the last 2 years during the pandemic, the house prices have increased 63%. What does it mean? I mean 63% increase compared to 2019 or early 2020, just before the start of the pandemic. So do you think by increase of the interest rate we will lose that momentum and we will retract almost 63% of the prices? Absolutely not. I firmly believe, yes, if the consumers, the buyer and seller, they have to rethink their strategy of entering their market, because now an increase of the interest rate, of course, it will reduce their ability to purchase the prices. Of course, it's a good news. It will adjust some of the prices in other markets or multiple markets in Ontario and Canada to a reasonable base. How much that base would be? It's all based on the demand. The demand still exists over there. I firmly believe it will have even less impact than the 2017, because in 2017, the introduction of the stress test actually reduced the ability of Canadian much more than the increase of the interest rate on a current market. So I wouldn't worry about that really for a long term. So let's also take a look at the fundamentals. How is our economy? Our economy is robust. In fact, this morning, the Canadian government predicted that the GDP ratio will land over the 4%. We have long waiting of the immigrant that they couldn't enter Canada due to the pandemic, and they will enter over the course of the 2022 and 2023. That will refuel also the demand in the market. We have still low interest rate, historical low interest rate. So what's going to happen with these increases? Maybe the 5 years variable will sit at around 2.5% to 3%, and 5 years fixed will sit around 3 to 3.5%. Exactly pre-pandemic rate. What else we have in our economy? Unemployment rate is sitting at the lowest point in the history, 5.3%. So, and there are multiple investor groups that they are entering real estate market because it's been the best class asset for rate of return. So all the fundamentals are there. So an increase of the interest rate is not only one factor that will really derail our real estate industry. So I wouldn't worry. Yes, for a short period of the time, similar to 2017, the Canadian will basically maybe sit on the sideline to assess their situation, but I'm confident within the 90 days or 120 days, they will re-enter back in the market and we will be an upward market. And what is the upward market? If you're going to have an increase of maybe 10% this year compared to 2019 or 20 prices, it is an upward market. Can we have another 30% increase in 2022 versus 2021? No, absolutely not, because that wasn't a sustainable market. I hope this information that we presented to you today help you and assist you to guide your clients through these policy changes. And I look forward to seeing you around the offices, and let's have a great 2022. Thank you.